Right, we're just going to run a few sound checks before we get going. Okay, so all seems to be working correctly. Let me know. Excuse me. Can you hear me okay? Testing. Let me know if the audio is good, and then we will continue. We have 17 people here. Welcome, everybody watching live, and hello. You have a huge echo, really? We have an echo. I wonder what's causing that then. Echo testing. There's not an echo. Why would you say there's an echo if there's not an echo? Guys, if I got an echo, let me know. Hi, everyone. Does anybody else have an echo? And if not, we continue. Grumpy's trolling me. No echo. Okay, so nobody else has got the echo. Brilliant, thank you. That was good then. That could have been tragic. I could have ended up shutting everything down. Grumpy, I don't know what he's on about. There's no echo. Hi, Ellen. Hello, my love. Peak is here. MK Ultra. Hello. Who else have we got? My bad. I'm sorry you are. Oh, okay. Right. Okay. So, Lilybell, hello. Lynn is here. Brum Vixen. Lee, Hawkeye. Grumpy Amethyst, thank you for the memberships. Who's joined the memberships? Lucy, Linda, hello, welcome to the live stream. Terry Knowles Band again, and Alan Edge, my YouTube husband. Mara is here as well. Who else? Anybody else? I've not mentioned Lynn. I've mentioned Lynn. Okay, I think that's it. And Linda, you're pulling your... Yeah, I know. Lilybell's here as well. Catherine. I love Catherine. I love saying her name. Catherine. Okay, so I've been literally... You guys will be aware. Thank you, MK Ultra. Right. So you guys will be aware that President Trump has signed an executive order in January. Hello, Space Cat. How you doing? How you doing, my love? In January, asking for the release of all of the files. Now, when President Trump became president in 2016, he did order. Hi, Matt. How you doing, my friend? He did order a release, and a lot of was released, not all. And then Joe Biden ordered a release in 2023, but there was still some reductions. Now, the FBI have apparently found a load more, few thousand files. That's a separate thing. This is from the CIA. Now, President Trump has ordered that all the files become released without redaction, so unredacted. Now, there's a lot of people moaning that there's no difference in the versions between Joe Biden and President Trump. But there are differences because a lot of what was whited out on the Joe Biden release are no longer whited out on the President Trump release. And they may seem insignificant. And this is what I was saying to Al the other day, is that people are just expecting to see that the shooter was going to be someone different. And experts are still poring over this, by the way. There is over 60,000 pages to go through. Okay, so anyone that comes to you and says there is nothing new in there is either lying or stupid, because nobody has finished going through them yet. There is a lot of work. Not one person could do that. So, guys, if you're coming to tune in to see if anything new, I can only show you the little bits that I've found so far, because there's thousands and thousands and thousands of pages So experts, researchers, they're not even finished. But they're hoping that there will be more in there that they'll find. So what I find interesting in these, and we're going to go through some in a moment, what I find interesting is the Cold War aspect, and we had the Cuban Missile Crisis, where the Soviet Union were actually selling missiles to the Cubans, and it really scared the Americans. They were really scared of communism at that time, really scared. And everyone was expected to be a patriot and a capitalist and against communism, but there were fringe parts of Americans who were supportive of communism. Anyway, I'm not looking at chat, by the way, so if you're coming into chat and I'm ignoring you, it's because I'm not looking at it, okay? Right, quick glance, I see refuse Nick Shawnsey. Right, I'm going to stop looking at chat now. So now in this file, there's a lot of talk about this. I say I've not read loads because so many. Operation, I think it was Process Mongoose. That was an interesting one, and that was a CIA operation aimed at Cuba. Now, some of you may remember 2 or 3 years ago, we actually covered on this channel Operation Northwood. Now, that was declassified from the CIA, so we've already got all the documents on that. And that one was actually, it would have been the American government causing damage to its own people. They wanted to actually kill and maim the American citizens to spark, blaming Cuba, to spark a war with Cuba, because they wanted to get rid of that Fidel Castro who was in charge at the time. Now, this Operation Northwood, just before President Kennedy was assassinated, it came to his desk. We covered this in Operation Northwood. It's still up on my channel. You can go and check it out. I might touch upon it a little bit in, not tonight, but another show, because I think it's worth revisiting because it's all linked up. But that was passed by all the generals and everybody in President Kennedy's government, but he said no. And I find that a coincidence that President Kennedy said no to Operation Northwood just before he was killed. And I think that is a big part of why he was killed. I don't believe the official story. They talk about the, you know, back in 1963, they didn't have the DNA testing or anything like that. They had the ballistics back from the gun, but they didn't have the technology, the DNA and all that they have today. So if that happened today, it would be more difficult to hide it because of social media and also the technology that we have around today. But I don't believe that this one, I think this guy was a patsy. I do think there's a possibility that MK Ultra was involved. And for those of you that say that MK Ultra isn't real, it is. It's been proven. It's been that was declassified a few years ago now. That was a CIA project. We've covered it briefly, but we could do a show a bit deeper into it, and I could get some files up on there. Project Mockingbird, that was a real project. Now, that is supposed to have ended in the 70s, which I don't believe happened. But could Oswald have been an MK Ultra sleeper agent? That is another theory, that he was activated. So they have a certain trigger word and they can just call them up and say the word, because they're completely brainwashed. Remember, if anyone doesn't know what MK Ultra is, it is pretty messed up stuff. The human mind, as you know, we don't know much about it at all, and they managed to crack people's brains so that one trigger word could trigger the act that they wanted them to do. And that's what some people say, that he was literally activated just to go and kill President Kennedy, and he wouldn't even have any memory of it. That is the MK Ultra theory. There are lots and lots of theories Hello, Nikki. I'm just having a quick look. Carlos is here. Texas is here. Hello, welcome everybody. I'm not really in the chat tonight. So Fox News put a video out. I think it was yesterday or the day before. So we're going to have a quick look at that because they do explain it quite well. The latest. We're going to have a look at that in a moment. So with what's coming out with these files, there is way too much to go through. It would take me alone a couple of years. Hi hoppers, so we can have a look through and we can see what we can find. But I think what we're looking for in these folders are memos between the CIA, and there's also between the ballistics with the gun. What did they actually say killed President Kennedy? They're saying it was a single shot, the magic bullet theory. I'm not sure if I believe that. So there's also was the two shooters. There was witnesses that said that there was two shooters. Hi, Nanielle, at the time. Hi, Rach. But because it was at a time when they could literally say anything, the government could say anything. Nobody had mobile phones. The internet wasn't invented yet. So you were lucky if you had a little black and white TV to actually see what was going on. So they could have covered absolutely anything up. So before we get going, we're just going to watch this short video from Fox News. I will have to pause it because obviously fair use, fair use. Okay.
I'm Austin Westfall. Well, today was the day. Thousands of pages of previously unseen files related to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy were released today. Right now, over 1,100 documents totaling roughly 80,000 pages are visible on the National Archives website. This comes after President Trump's push to release the files, and standing by is a man who knows the history of the assassination well, presidential historian and author James Robinault. What have we learned today, James?
Well, Austin, we learned a lot about the CIA. Most of these documents are CIA-type documents, from their plan to try to assassinate Castro. Operation Mongoose is what it was called.
Right, so that's what I've just touched upon, the Operation Mongoose. Hi, Stella. Hi, Peaky. Operation, I think it was Progress, because I've been through some of these files, but there's more than I realised there was going to be, right? And we will be, I think this is going to have to be, obviously, a series where we uncover some, we talk about it, ongoing, as a side thing. But obviously there's other things coming up as well, because we've got the crop circles coming up as well, and then Alan Edge suggested the moon landings. I think that's a good one as well to look at, and we'll try and get some for and against. We could even do a little debate. We could have some mass debate going on, so we could have some people coming up maybe on the moon landings and give their views. We could also do that. Anyway, hit the like, guys, if you enjoy this sort of content, this spooky, well, not spooky, is it conspiracy? I don't know what it is. It's intriguing, it's curious, it's unexplained. That's what we like over here. So this guy here, he's like an expert. I love a mass debate, says Mara. Me too. It's good. It's always good to have it out with each other in a group. And this guy's talking about the Operation Progress Mongoose. Now, they really wanted Castro gone, and they really were scared of the Cubans. And I think the paranoia in the American government at that time and in the CIA, I believe, led them. I still say to this day, and I've always said it, that he was bumped off by his own. I really do believe that, because there's no way that this guy, now we will be looking a little bit more into that as well, because a little bit more has come out. And one of the things inside these files is that the KGB say that they did not instruct him. Now, Oswald did go to the Soviet Union in the September before the shooting on the 22nd of November. So he had been in there, which is why they kept saying he was a communist. He was a Marine as well, an ex-Marine, but apparently, according to the KGB, he was a rubbish shot. So let's continue listening to this guy. But I do genuinely believe that there was 2 shooters and the government were involved. That's my opinion.
Lots of detail on that, involving mafia figures to help them. It's an incredible story. To Jack Ruby and Oswald being seen in a nightclub, according to a CIA memo weeks before the assassination, to all sorts of discredit on the single bullet theory that the ballistics people thought,
So these are all the things that are in the files. Now, there's a lot of YouTubers, I'm told. I don't watch other channels on the stuff that I'm talking about. Never have, never will. So many people send me videos and say, Penny, watch this. I don't want to watch it, and I'm not being rude. But when I want to do a show, I want to do my own research. I want to come to my own conclusions. I don't want to be watching other people, what they found. Now, what we're watching now is we want to get the insight of this expert. But the stuff that he's talking about, I'd already gone through and found out about Operation Mongoose, for example. So these files, there's a hell of a lot of memos in there from the CIA. And there is some little nuggets in there, and a lot of YouTubers are telling you and on the news that there's nothing new in there. Don't listen to them. There are little bits in there, and also they haven't even got through. How can they get through nearly 70,000 pieces of paper? Now, some people are using AI to read it for them. I don't know how you guys feel about me doing something like that. Personally, I think that's bloody lazy, but it's also handy. Hi, Herman the Tosser. How are you? Right, I'm just going to listen to this expert again and see what he's got to say. Did you, George?
That this just didn't happen back when the Warren Report came out. To the CIA operation out of Mexico City, and all the intelligence they were gathering on Oswald. So it is a truckload of information. It's going to take weeks to analyze. Their 100-page depositions in it. It truly is a real trove of information that begins to paint a much stronger picture that the CIA knew kind of what was coming and may have been involved in the group out of Miami that was the anti-Castro group that may have been setting up Oswald. So a ton of stuff.
Does this change the official narrative?
I think it will. I mean, I think what we're going to, and as I've said before, this is like a big jigsaw puzzle, and we have a lot of pieces in place. What we didn't know were some of the identities of some of these people, and the CIA documents, everybody's got a code name. So that's going to take a long while for people to unravel. But I think it's going to show that they were very active with the group that was entangled with Oswald in New Orleans in the summer of 1963. And the evidence is starting to look more and more like they were setting up Oswald, and that the anti-Castro group were the people who might have.
Right, so that's what he's saying. So the Cubans and the Castro, the pro-Castro communist people, he's saying could have set Oswald up. I don't believe that either. I think I genuinely believe that this murder came from within the US government. That's high level jubbly. That's my opinion. What will we gain from all this information? We're going to go through that in a moment. But like I said to you, like I was just saying to everybody, President Trump asked that nothing is redacted. Like, I'm just going to plug my laptop in 1 sec because it's going to die. Just bear with me. I can never find the hole. The vicar to the barmaid. There we go. Slotted in nicely. So, yeah, I just want to get this expert's thoughts before we go through. So, I'm just going to hear a little bit more from him.
pulled the triggers. So I think there's a lot here to work with, a lot to analyze. And as you know, because of Paul Landis's revelation that he found the bullet in the limousine that you and I have talked about so much, that tends to prove there was an ambush, that there were multiple shooters. This will then start to give us a better idea of who might have been involved.
Yeah, so let's back up on that. So for people that are watching that haven't watched our interviews before, why do you feel it is appropriate to question the actual story, and you know what? I will say this too, by the way. The official version of the story is that Oswald was the lone gunman. So why do you feel like it's fair to question that theory?
Yeah, I think that the main thing is that when Paul Landis found the pristine bullet behind where Kennedy had been sitting and Jackie had been sitting, it showed that that bullet had only gone superficially into his back and that it fell back out. That means that the bullet didn't go through him into Conley, which is the official version. And, one bullet caused all this damage, which nobody ever believed. The problem is Kennedy gets hit, and within a split second, you can see that Conley gets hit. So there's not enough time for Oswald, who has a bold action, to shoot about 3 seconds, load and shoot again to hit Conley. So there had to be multiple shooters. And once we know that, we know that there's a conspiracy. Once we know there's a conspiracy, then the question is who was involved in it. But that evidence is pretty strong that there were multiple shooters.
From what you have seen of the documents, are there redactions?
No, I haven't yet seen any, and I've seen people write who've been through a lot more than I have that they haven't seen them yet. I think they really did take off the redactions. And again, this is going to help put together these pieces of the puzzle, because you have these various people who are identified in Miami, you have the people identified in Mexico City, and now you're starting to put all this stuff together to see what the puzzle looks like once you put those pieces in.
So I got to ask, this is something that you and I have talked about ad nauseum. I mean, the assassination happened in the 60s. Here we are in the 2020s now talking about this. Why did it take so long for these documents to be released?
I think the answer to that is that when the Warren report came out, President Johnson and Hoover in particular were very much trying to end the controversy and not spark World War III. They were worried that this was going to be blamed on the Cubans. They were worried it was going to be blamed on the Russians, and they were not willing to risk nuclear war over all of this. So they very much pushed the Warren Commission to get it done, blame it on one person. And at that point, the Warren Commission came out with a report that started to fall apart almost right away, but a lot of people still hung on to it. And the only reason that it's taken all these years is that the CIA convinced president after president that there were still people alive, there were still operations that they needed to protect. And it's only really in the last year that we finally have somebody saying, well, enough of that. Let's see all of it. It cannot be.
So what this expert's saying is there is stuff in there, but we just haven't found all of it yet. And there's no evidence that anything that's come out now has been redacted. So I'm just going to give you a quick side-by-side example now of, apology if you get the clicky on the laptop. My charge is not going to stretch, so my microphone's right next to my laptop. So if you do hear any clicky, I know that Lucy likes it, but my apologies if you hear it. So I'm just going to quickly show you guys now just an example, okay? A piece from these archives. Right. This is a side-by-side. Let's get this off the screen. Thank you again for joining me. Like I say, this is a massive thing to do. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a brief example now. I'm going to make this big screen. Oh, you like the clicky? I thought it was just Lucy. You like it as well? Okay. Right, now I'm going to have to zoom in quite a bit because obviously these are individual pieces. They're the same, exactly the same piece of paper. All right. So I'm just going to zoom in so you can see the side by side. I've taken screenshots of both and I've placed them side by side. Now, over here on the left is the 2023 release. Let's see if I can make it go any bigger. No, I can't. Right. Over here, you have the 2023 release. Now, that was done under President Biden. And over here, you have the new current Donald Trump release. This is this one here. So some people are saying that there is nothing new in the new release, but that isn't true. And I'm going to show you here. This is just an example. So the 2023 release, now, city, site, it's redacted, it's blanked out. The new one that's come out in the last few days says Mexico City. So there are things that they are hiding. And again, we've got redactions here. So it says here, station continues to conduct joint tell-tap operations with blanked out. Over here, with Mexican liaison, right? So this is all about the Mexicans. And then again, another example here, it's completely blanked out. Over here, it's not. So that's just one example of a side-by-side where people are saying, oh, there's nothing different with President Trump's one. That's just one example. There's a lot of differences. Now, there's also a lot more that have been uncovered that were previously not. Now, I am told by several sources that there are still files that haven't been released. And one of them was to do with the FBI, that they've apparently found some files. So this might not be it. Now, President Trump has ordered all of these to come out, so we can only hope that there's going to be more coming out. So, right. Just bear with me. So there's a BBC article here that was updated. I think it was yesterday. Let's get it up. And that goes through 9 hours ago, updated. That goes through what people are saying. Just in case you guys, you should be able to see this now. Can you see what's on my screen? Right, you need it bigger. Right, okay, that's better. So as you can see, experts are going through this. So there's not going to be anything that we can actually pull out for definite tonight, because there's so much of it. But I wanted to still come on and discuss it with you. So the experts are poring over thousands of newly released documents. I think that's spelt wrong, isn't it? Pouring. Idiots. But this says here that this latest release does not answer all the questions. But how can they say that? Hi Timmy's Pip Coat. How can they say that when they haven't even finished going through them all? But it does say that the latest batch does include documents that are now mostly or fully redacted. As the government investigation, the 60s concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald was a drifter, former Marine who at one point defected to the then Soviet Union. But inside these documents, it says that the KGB said that he wasn't working for them. Now, he did visit the Soviet Union, like I said, and one of these documents says, hello, Mr. Mendes, it's been a while, says that he was a bad shot as well. So we're going to get into that. There's so much to unpack. So this is what the experts are saying so far. There's more on Oswald, but no bombshells. The documents further shed light on the CIA's strong surveillance of Oswald. So they were apparently watching him. So how did this happen is the question. it says he was a deep subject to the CIA, and that's coming from this other website here, which we'll be getting onto in a moment. JFK Facts. It's like a Substack that someone's been doing for years. So many of the new documents have been released before, which is what I just said, that there's a lot of duplicates. Is the Israel stuff redacted? Well, they've put in the Mexico stuff. So Timmy's coat, there's thousands and thousands of pieces of paper. I've only just started going through it all, hi Lance. So many of them have been released before, as we know. Still, it's the most exciting news around the JFK record since the 90s. A lot of them were released in the 90s, by the way, around 1993 was the first batch. Several important documents have come into public view. So experts have praised this release. It's a step forward, but there's still stuff missing. In the past, hundreds of thousands of documents were made available, but they were partially redacted, like I've just given you a quick example there. So there is a lot of talk about this Mexico City. He went to Mexico City in the September as well, just months before. And in there, it says that the CIA were monitoring him and recorded 3 phone calls between Oswald and a guard at the Soviet embassy. Now, the other problem in there, this is the picture of him there. The other problem with this is that they don't know what the code names for people are, because people have got code names in these files. So people don't know like who's code for what, you know, and that is a massive problem. So let me just. So for those of you who want to start going through this, let me just grab this up for you. I'm going to link it because it's probably going to have to be something that we might have to do as a team. There's so much to go through. Right. I'll get into this in a sec. Because I don't know how interested people are about this. Let me just have a quick look in the chat. Do people want me to go digging deeper into this? I did want to cover it because it's big news at the moment. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, Timmy? Timmy's coat. There's not much redacted. I've seen that people are saying that Israel have been redacted. I haven't even got that. There is thousands. I'm going to show you now. So Herman and Timmy and Lucy all want me to go deeper. It's boring. No, it's boring, says Alan Edge. YouTube husband. Morpheus, have you got a new channel? What happened to your other channel? Hang on, let me just give more. Let me just check it is you, Morpheus. Hang on. I've subbed to you. What happened? Mama Bear to Loki Boy, hello, how you doing? It's on UNN Telegram. Oh, new channel, yeah. So there's mostly yeses then. Just one doesn't want it. Don't worry, the next show will still be your my pleasure, bud. Will be the crop circles. UNN, yeah, they've got into a bit of a ding dong with what's his name, Carl Benjamin, haven't they? That's I forgot what his YouTube name is now. Anyway, UNN, they've gone full circle. They're very, very. David has become very far, almost left now. He's become very anti. He blames Israel for everything. I don't know what's going on with him. It seems to. He thinks that everybody everything is against him. Everybody's an agent. You know, he thinks that everyone is working for the Israelis. I don't quite know what's going on there with him. I do follow them on Telegram, but I haven't watched them for a while. is that he got bumped off just 2 weeks later. And I think we need to go digging in these files for the MK Ultra. He went from being one completely like didn't believe anything to the other way now. And I find it a shame because his news agency, Unity News Network, could have done better if he hadn't have gone so far down that road. But there you go. Yeah, I think it was a government thing as well, Mr. Menzer. So a number of the documents shed light on Kennedy's relationship with the CIA. Now, they weren't getting on, apparently, which is what we were talking about, Operation Northwood, giving a window into the Cold War operations at the time. So a newly redacted memo reveals a more complete version of a note written by Kennedy aide Arthur Schleislinger. Is that how you say it? Now, the problem is with a lot of these memos is you can't read them, because I can't read the writing. That's a big problem. And Kennedy's aide was very critical of the CIA and its role in shaping foreign policy. The note adds that the agency's huge presence in embassies, even in allied countries such as France, the CIA were everywhere. In it, Schleisinger, is that how you say it, warns Kennedy about the agency's influence on American foreign policy. Though not directly related to the assassination, the memo details the rocky relationship between the president and the intelligence agencies. The thing is, you've got to look at these things and work it out. You put the puzzle pieces together. If the CIA and their obsession with the communists and shaping foreign policy was nothing to do with the assassination, it wouldn't be in the files. So we need to be painting more of a picture, I believe, of what was going on around at that time, what was going on with the CIA, what were they up to? I missed something in the chat. Sorry, no, I don't know what that means. So the CIA is traditionally opposed to releasing operational or budget information, says David Barrett, a Villanova University professor and expert on the CIA and presidential power. It's a very good thing for the government to release these documents, even if there may still be some redactions. So they're talking about there are things in there, but there might be some redactions. And the problem is that the executive order by President Trump that's forcing them to do this, they've still got powers. They've still got some powers where they can actually say no. So one document details the use of fluoroscopic scanning using X-rays in 1960, like 2-3 time. Really clever stuff back then, that uses X-rays to show images of the inside of an object. The technique was developed to detect hidden microphones possibly used to bug CIA offices. So there's quite a lot of details on there. Now, there's an unseen video here that is moments before JFK was assassinated. So before we get into the files, a lot of this, what I've been giving you, is just a brief overview. Before we get into the files, we're gonna watch this. So there's only one person who finds it boring. Anybody else, let me know. The thing is, you can't please all the people all the time, can you? That's the problem. Okay, here we go. This is only a short video. This is footage of just before the shooting.
This film
So
is
sad, isn't it?
important. The first frame of the film,
Where's the
you can see the
audio?
Secret Service car, and again, people holding their signs. But
Well, I
this
can't hear
operator
anything.
missed filming the president just by 5-10
Very quiet,
seconds.
isn't it?
Because he didn't get the president on camera, he wants to go up on Stemmons Freeway because he knows they're going to the Trade Mart. In just seconds, the president's car is going to go screaming by at 80 miles an hour. This film is historically important visually, but as an artifact, it's extremely collectible. It is the first original reel of film you could really buy from November 22nd, 1963, since the Zapruder film. You have this moment on this film, and I couldn't wait to see it, where Limo 1 is speeding 80 miles an hour down the Stemmons Freeway, heading to the hospital, and Agent Clint Hill is still on the car, holding on. And as the car passes by, you can clearly see Mrs. Kennedy in the back seat and Clint heroically still holding her down, and they're on their way to attempt to save the president's life. What I'm hopeful is other families in Dallas will go running up and go through their 8mm films and see what else is there, because these films need to be curated and need to be.
That's really interesting. So the films are out there, and they're saying if you've got these films, because there's so many people that were there witnessing it, and there's going to be footage out there that people haven't seen yet, that they might have away in the loft or something, put away. But the thing is, I genuinely don't believe that the CIA weren't having people on all the buildings. Even if they weren't directly involved, they surely had to let the guard down. Do you know what I mean? Now, why was his car open as well? I understand he wanted to wave to supporters, but that in itself is a bit bizarre, that he left himself so wide open. Now, and then another thing what we need to focus on is the person who shot Lee Harvey Oswald 2 weeks later. Now, they were seen in a nightclub together. Was he one of the other shooters? Was he one of the others? And he wanted to bump him off so he couldn't speak. I think the fact that they bumped him off says that there's so much more that we don't know, because otherwise, why get him bumped off? So some old theories have been resurrected. Some well-known online accounts claim the recent documents reveal new details about the long alleged plots against Kennedy, even though some of the supposed revelations have been public for years. That includes several viral posts about Gary Underhill, a World War II military intelligence agent. Mr. Underhill reportedly claimed that a cabal of CIA agents... Why has that just done that then? Sorry, folks. That's annoying, isn't it? That a cabal of CIA agents were behind the assassination. Now, I think that is more likely. Why does it keep doing that? For sake, man. How annoying. And a theory openly published in Ramparts, a left-wing magazine. Remember that he was a liberal back then, so the liberals thought that the righties had done it. In 1967, now Mr. Underhill's death in 1964 was ruled a suicide. So the person who had come out and said that this was the CIA that did it just happened to kill himself, but the magazine cast doubt on that as well. I think this goes so far down rabbit holes. So photos of a 7-page memo regarding Mr. Underhill went viral on Tuesday this week, but the bulk of it is not new. His story has long been discussed online, and the CIA memo mentioning it was first released in 2017. Let's just go to this memo here. So I don't know if you can see this now. I think you can. Now, just to give you a bit of an example of how difficult these things are to read, right? This is from 19th of July, 1967. Okay. Trying to make it as big as possible so you can read it. But as you can see, it's quite difficult to read a lot of these. Oh, Tramadol won a membership. Aren't you lucky? Well, fuck off then. You don't have to be a twat. So anyway, let's carry on. The day after the assassination, Gary Underhill, so this is this guy, do one. If you don't want to be here, do one. Left Washington in a hurry. Late in the evening, he showed up at the home of friends in New Jersey. So this is the day after the assassination. Gary left Washington in a hurry. Well, if you're going to be a knob, you don't get a mod. If you're going to be nice, you get one. So be nice and you can have it back. So this was the day after Kennedy was murdered. And it says he was very agitated. A small clique within the CIA was responsible for the assassination, he confided. And this is in the release documents. This was originally released in 2017. And he was afraid for his life and possibly would have to leave the country. Less than 6 months later, Underhill was found shot to death in his Washington apartment. Right, be good, Tram, you can have it back. The coroner ruled it to be suicide. You could not make this shit up. Hi, JP. Is that which JP is this? I know it's a different JP. I don't know. So this person who said that it was a small cabal of the CIA, and said the next day, this Gary Underhill, the next day, and went and seen friends and said, that they're after me. He then was shot to death, and they said it was suicide. Now, shot to death, I don't know. We need to see his autopsy. So he goes on. Garrett Underhill had been an intelligence agent during World War II and was a recognised authority on limited warfare and small arms. A researcher and writer on military affairs, he was on a first-name basis with many of the top brass in the Pentagon. Hello, Jack. How you doing? Good to see you. He was also on intimate terms with a number of high-ranking CIA officials. He was one of the agency's people who performed special assignments. At one time, he had been a friend of Samuel Cummings of Inter Armco, the arms broker that numbers among its customers are the CIA, ironically Klein Sporting Goods of Chicago, from whence the mail order Carcano allegedly was purchased by Oswald. See, this goes down deeper and deeper and deeper. So this guy, this Gary Underhill, it's looking highly likely that he was bumped off. Now, how they can say that if he was shot to death, that he was suicide. Let me just have a quick Google. George is asleep, but he's had a busy day, so I'm letting him have a little nap and then I'm going to get him up. I was a bit late tonight, guys. Apologies. Right, let me just get this. I want his autopsy. Hang on, if I can bloody read it. Doctors, man. Right. Let's see if we can find it. Just bear with me, folks. I want to know. I want to see his autopsy. Right, what's this? Is this it? Bear with me, folks. I hope you're all okay. Pancake Jack. Jack, if that's you, what can we say? What's something that we can say that you would know, that we could prove it was you? Right, I've managed to find this guy's death certificate. Let me just get it up on the screen. Yeah, Tramadol, someone's timed you out. At the end of the day, right, you're welcome in if you're going to be all right, but I can't concentrate on the chat if you're being a dickhead, can I? You know, this is a serious stream. Oh, Diane, I'm so sorry to hear that. How can you prove it was you? Okay, then. Tell me what you were doing when you were, what were you filming in the sky when you used to come in? And I'll give you a wrench. So I've just managed to find Gary Underhill, his death certificate. If we can, right. Yes, the dark ones. Okay, so this guy, there's some stuff in the new release documents about this, but obviously I've gone into this first because I want to see I want to see his death certificate. Do you see what I mean? This is literally years worth of research and years worth of content. So I think what we're going to do, we're going to be unraveling bits during live streams. Hi, Larry Weinberg. I think they might do, to be honest, but I think there's a lot of it. A lot of it is still hidden, and there's people saying there's nothing in the files, but they haven't even finished them yet. But Gary Underhill, the day after he was murdered, the day after JFK was murdered, he went and said that it was the CIA that did it, and then he just happened to be shot to death. So, and then it was ruled a suicide. I think that alone says a lot. So what I'm going to do, this part here, I'm probably going to make a small video on this part as well. But obviously we're doing it live. We're unpacking these files live. If anybody wants to volunteer to go through some, and I'm going to get them up in a moment, let me know, because it's a big task. So John Garrett Underhill. So this is quite small to read, but there's his birth, his death. There's his grave. To mark the tragic circumstances surrounding the assassination of President Kennedy, we thought it fitting to highlight the story of an Underhill relative who had a brush with that sad chapter in our nation's history. So he was born August the 7th, 1915. He's the son of John Garrett Underhill. So he was a World War II. He was in the World War II. He went on to study linguistics and graduate from Harvard in 1937. This was not an idiot. This guy was very intelligent. And they basically, he got into the CIA and he whistle blew and they bumped him off. So in 1940, it was announced in the New York Times that Underhill was to wed Miss Patricia Semple. So there you go. There's his grave there. And that's his mum, I think. Oh. Right. So this guy was not an idiot. Okay. Now, from late 49 to the mid-50s, he was an informant who had contact with the Office of Domestic Contact Service of the CIA. In 1951, he wrote a 6,500-word essay with Ronald Schiller entitled The Tragedy of the U.S. Army for Look magazine that was published in 51. After writing the article, the Harvard Alumni Bulletin printed Underhill's own words. So this guy was an academic. He weren't stupid. So he served as deputy director for the Civil Defense of Washington, D.C., an exercise meant to simulate an evacuation in the event of a hydrogen bomb attack called Operation Alert. He was carried out in 55. Underhill was outspoken of his criticism of the exercise, stating in the press that it was not a drill but a show. During the exercise, he declined heading to the command post for the exercise, claiming it was so inadequate it couldn't cope with bushfire. So they're saying that it was just more of a we can cope rather than we actually did cope. Threatening a doghouse in a backyard. Now, it goes on. Underhill took an active interest in family organisations. He serves as president of the Underhill Society of America. And at the end of his life, he became surrounded in controversy. So, surrounding facts related to the assassination of President Kennedy. Following the assassination of the president, Underhill told his friend Charlene Fitzsimons that he was convinced that Kennedy had been killed by a small clique in the CIA. He knew the people involved and what they knew. He also said that Oswald, I'm quoting here, Oswald is a patsy. They set him up. It's too much. The bastards have done something outrageous. They've killed the president. I've been listening and hearing things. I couldn't believe that they'd get away with it, but they did. Jim Garrison, district attorney from Louisiana, conducted an investigation into the assassination of President Kennedy. Among the witnesses he sought was John Garrett Underhill. In an interview that Garrison gave for Playboy magazine, interesting, he referred to the CIA agent with valuable information pertaining to his investigation. The name of Gary Underhill was used interchangeably with his dad, John Garrett Underhill. A memo from the CIA to the Justice Department in 1967 referred to the interview in some detail. So we're not going to read the interview in Playboy magazine because we're looking at how he died. So now we're going to get the guy's death certificate. For those people who are just tuning in, Gary Underhill was a CIA officer when President Kennedy was assassinated, and he blew the whistle. I know, Playboy, how bizarre. Guys, this is a live research night as well, so we're learning as we're going along here, so just bear with me, okay? So, goes on. Sources differ on whether the cause of death was suicide or if the people or groups had motivations to see him removed before had secret information that he threatened to divulge. His death certificate from the District of Columbia Department of Public Health listed the cause of death as shot self in head with automatic pistol. That was my quote. So this guy had been raving that there is somebody after him trying to kill him, and that the CIA bumped off the president. And then a few months later, he just happens to be found egg stained, basically, bumped off. So here we go. This is death certificate. Let's try and make it as big as possible. I can't really read this, okay? We're going to do our best. So, to New York, we've got New York there, USA, John Garrett Underhill. It's his wife, spouse, his mother's maiden name, property of the government, administrative purposes only. Right, okay, so we've got it here. Shot self. This is the cause of death. Shot self in head with automatic pistol. That's it. Now, who believes this? Who believes that this guy would do this? Because I don't. This guy had a lot of evidence. Where's Jan tonight? I wonder if she's in bed. I've gone a bit late tonight, haven't I? Shot self in head. Surviving him was his wife, and he had one son and a sister as well. Yeah, Lucy doesn't believe it. Neither do I. I think this is so sad, and this guy needs justice. Let me just get back into the stream a moment. Okay, love. Don't know why it keeps doing that. So what we're going to do now, we are going to. So sad, that, isn't it? We're going to get into these files. So I've got an hour just to get to that bit. There's so much This is not something we can just cover quickly. So for those of you who want to know how to get the files, I'm going to pop the link in now. Now, this is to the 2025 release. I don't know why it's doing that. Here's the link in the... I'll try and remember to put it in the description as well. Hi, Julius. How did it go? I suppose you don't know yet, do you? So this is the National Archives, and this is the webpage for the new release of documents. So I'm going to try and give you an idea now of how many of them these are. So it goes on in accordance with President Trump's directive of the 17th of March 2025. All records previously withheld for classification that are part of the President Kennedy assassination record collection are released. So President Trump has said, release the lot. Don't hold anything back. The National Archives has partnered with agencies across the federal government to comply with the President's directive in support of Executive Order 14176, which is the order that wanted these released. So, Section 10, the President Kennedy Assassination Records Act of 1992, addresses information under court seal or for grand jury secrecy, and Section 11 of the Act addresses records with tax return information. So it goes on, accessing the records. So here we go. Now, these, if you go to this, you go to all. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see. Right, so as you can see, there's a lot. Okay, I make it bigger so you guys can see it. There are, I think it was 63,000 of these. On Earth, anybody time to go through all of these is beyond me. So what I've been doing is just going through some of them. They are going to release the Martin Luther King files. President Trump has ordered the release of those as well. Well, he's promised them. So we're going to hopefully get them as well, which is good. Do you think JFK Jr. will say out as he has a team on it looking? I don't know, but there's also, they want the files. Was it his brother or his nephew as well that got killed in a plane crash? That was really dodgy. Another Kennedy. So all of these here, there are so many of them. Literally be here all day. So what we want to do, we want to choose a starting point and work through them. Now, in my opinion, I don't know about you guys, but we should be starting at what was going on around at the time. So what was going on with the Cold War? Why were people so why were the people so paranoid? Why was the CIA so paranoid that the communists were going to do something? And the Operation Northwood, I'd like to know if that is in here. And again, apparently you can get AI. I don't know how. I don't know how much it would cost, but you can get AI that will go through this entire thing and pick out, hi Blackjack, whatever you want. I'm just getting a few open here. Right, I know you can't see them at the moment, but I'm just grabbing a few just to give us... there's some from before the shooting, there's some from after the shooting, and a lot of it is just memos between the government and the CIA just talking about, they're obsessed with Mexico and Cuba. I'm just reading this. Now, from what I can see, President Kennedy was, again, people may differ, right? I bet Robert Kennedy Jr. is going ape at these docs. Is that the one who is against his uncle? Bobby. No, Bobby. I thought Bobby wants them released, doesn't he? The health guy. I get mixed up with them all. I'm just having a quick gander through some of these files. So if I go quiet, that's why. But there is just so many. And these dates as well are really interesting. There's a lot from 1968 here that they're talking about the Cold War. But look at all these. Look at them all. Anybody want to volunteer? Yeah, he is. That's what I meant. He's the health minister. I would have thought that he would have wanted these out. Look at this. According to this, there's 2,182 entries. Now that is added on to all of the other ones that are already released. So you're looking at, was it 63,000 in total? There's just too much for one person to go through. Now, some of these have already been released in the 90s. Oh, there's a lot of stuff in Cuba. Bear with me a moment. I just want to get something up. What I want to do is I want to go through these files, and I want to look for Operation Northwood, because who remembers that? Who remembers me going through that? Does anybody remember it? Or is anybody here tonight that might remember that when we went through it? Right, just having a quick look. Because I'm telling you, Operation Northwood was literally a blueprint for 9/11. It was, they were going to do stuff to themselves. They were going to literally blow themselves up. Well, not blow themselves up, but kill their own people to create this hysteria. I know it does. It goes, it's not, people are focusing on just the shooter, but they're not looking at the bigger picture. I'm trying to find where I can. Right, I found an article here. Right, okay, so I've just found something quite interesting. I'm going to get it on the screen now. You are not authenticated to read this. What? Come on. So, Operation Northwood, I would like to know if it was mentioned in these files, first of all. Secondly, don't remember yesterday. Right, I found something on it here. So they wanted to overthrow Fidel Castro, and there's a lot of talk of this Operation Mongoose to overthrow him. But Operation Northwoods was literally the blueprint for 9/11. They wanted to commit terrorist atrocities on their own country, on their own people, and blame the Cubans. They were going to start off with shooting boats of Cubans that were coming in, because the Cubans were coming in as migrants on the East Coast, and they were coming in and they were going to blow them up, and then they were going to blame the Cubans for doing it, and then they were going to blow up their own people on boats, and they were going to blame the Cubans for doing it. And that's what Operation Northwood was. So this got passed by, this was all secret at the time, but this got passed by all the generals, and it got all the way to the top, to Kennedy, and he said no. So in lieu of an abstract, here is a brief excerpt of the content. So this is what President Kennedy said in 1961, the 16th of November, 1961, 2 years and a few days before he was murdered. And he said regarding Operation Northwoods, we cannot, as a free nation, compete with our adversaries in tactics of terror, assassination, false promises, counterfeit mobs, and crises. We possess weapons of tremendous power, but they are least effective in combating the weapons most often used by freedom's foes: subversion, infiltration, guerrilla warfare, and civil disorder. So he was basically saying, we are not going to use terror tactics that they use. It was a big fat no. This is somebody from 1990. So in 1961, President Kennedy determined to avoid another fiasco like the Bay of Pigs invasion. That's a whole nother show, which was hatched under the Eisenhower administration and planned by the CIA and carried out by Cuban I can't read that, the previous April, authorized Pentagon Joint Chiefs of Staff to develop a plan for dealing with Fidel Castro, who had been in power nearly 2 years. They created Operation Mongoose. That is the one I was talking about earlier. A covert project aimed at making Cubans receptive to a counter-revolution, triggering an uprising. Can you see here what they're doing this now? This is not new stuff. What they're doing now, the way they use the media to influence and so on and so on, it's all done using old methods. These are blueprints for what they're actually doing now. Look at how they made people believe that they would catch a virus if they walked down a supermarket aisle the wrong way, and people were believing it. This comes from. It's all the old MO, all going through. It's the same stuff, but this did it before the internet. So Mongoose was named in those documents quite a lot, but I need to find out if Northwood was. So that was their plan to overthrow Castro. But as you can see here, Kennedy said no. He said no. And here you can see the Pentagon scripts for overthrowing Castro. And it was involved terrorism on their own land, on the American people. So let me just shut that a minute. Hang on, I've got so many tabs open now because I've opened all these files. So that isn't good. I hope you guys are enjoying this deep dive. There's so much to unpack. I apologise for... But basically, Operation Northwood hang on. I was trying to find the documents for this. Operation Northwood was basically a false flag. So I'm going to show you this now. Apologies if people want the answers to the assassination. I don't have the answers. I can only give you what we can find and try and put the pieces together. So this is a declassified CIA document. How do I close that there? Because I want to bring it over. Hold on. So this was a memorandum for the Secretary of Defense, who actually approved this. All right. I think this is 16. This is it's actually a Chromebook, but it's a really good one. It's not one of the cheap ones. It's got 16 gig of RAM in it, which is really good for a Chromebook. So this was a memo for the Secretary of Defense. I think this was from the CIA, Department of Defense. The CIA was quite new because it was created after the end of World War II, during the 50s. So the Joint Chief of Staff have considered the attached memo for the Chief of Operations Cuba Project, which responds to a request that the Office for Brief but Precise Description of Pretext will provide justification for US military intervention in Cuba. So they wanted to mess with the people's minds in Cuba and cause them to overthrow their government. They are, and a lot of them, the cheap ones are atrocious, but this is a really good one. Well, it was a really, really good one. Time. Is it HP? I can't remember what this is. Is it an Acer? I think it's an Acer. So as you can see, right, this was top secret. So this went to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. All right. And all of this that's in here, it's hard to read. All this was declassified. Yeah, some of it's redacted. Was approved. They requested on the 13th of March, 1962. The 16 gig of RAM with no Windows would take up a third of your RAM. Is actually really good, isn't it? Because it's all run by the cloud, isn't it? Being Google. So in 62, this was going on. This Northwoods. There's so much in here. There's so much to go through, honestly. And I believe that this had something to do with why JFK was murdered. All of the details are in here. The suggested courses of action appended to enclosure a satisfactory response to the statement of the problems. Recommendations. So they were recommending to the Chief of Staff that they approve Operation Northwood. Now, we're looking for this attached memo here. Justification. Think about it. Justification to go to war with Cuba. What happened with Iraq? What happened with 9/11? They had justification to go into Iran because there was a massive terror attack on US soil. This is a blueprint for 9/11. They wanted to do the same thing back then. And President Kennedy said no, when everybody around him said yeah. When this got turned down, they then started looking at this Operation Mongoose, which was a secondary thing that meant that they didn't have to maim their own American citizens. But their first one was this. So it's all in here. I need to try and hang on. So they wanted to go to war. with Cuba, and they had to fake something to get him in there. Since it would be desirable to use legitimate provocation as the basis for US military intervention in Cuba, a cover for deception plan to include requisite preliminary actions such as being developed in response to task 33, they love that number, could be executed as an initial effort to provoke Cuban reactions, harassment, plus deceptive actions to convince the Cubans, so the Cuban people, of imminent invasion would be emphasized. Right, let me just get into something. I need to try and find the memo where it says what they want to do to the American people. Right, here we go. Found it. So they were going to do a terror campaign on their own people. Okay, so this is what they wanted to do. So let's get down to it. Operation Northwood. Incidents to establish a credible attack, not in a chronological order. So any order that they could find. They wanted to start rumors, many using clandestine radio. So this was how they wanted to get the Cubans wound up to overthrow their own government. Okay, listen to this, folks. And this has got a lot to do with JFK, because this was all just before he got bumped off. Secondly, land friendly Cubans in uniform over the fence to stage an attack on a base. So friendly Cubans, dress them up and drop them over the into America, over the fences, to pretend to attack the Americans. Number 3, capture Cuban, a friendly, and saboteurs inside the base. So again, friendly Cubans to work for us and pretend that they're hurting the Americans. Number 4, start riots near the base main gate. Friendly Cubans, so fakes. Number 5, blow up ammunition inside the base, start fires. Number 6, burn aircraft on the base. This is all what they wanted to do to cause war. Lob mortar shells from lob mortar shells from outside the base into base, some damage to installations. Capture assault teams approaching from the sea or vicinity of Guantanamo City. Capture militia groups which storm the base, sabotage ships in harbour, sink ships in harbour near entrance, conduit funerals for mock victims. So fake funerals for fake victims. The US would respond by executing offensive operations to secure water and power supplies, destroying artillery and mortar emplacements which threaten the base. Can you imagine if we ever got to see the blueprints for the older lockdowns? Can you imagine what we would see? You can just imagine it, can't you? Maybe one day we'll get the American version, because we're never going to get this version, are we? So it goes on. Remember, the main incident could be arranged in several forms. I don't know what the main incident was, but it says remember the main incident. Now, we could blow up a drone. Now, they had drones in 1962, apparently. Unmanned vessel, so a drone vessel. So, like, basically drone meant unmanned then, not really drone. Anywhere in the Cuban waters. So they were going to blow up an unmanned vessel in the Cuban waters. We could arrange to cause such incident in the vicinity of Havana or Santiago as a spectacular result of a Cuban attack from the air or sea or both. So they were going to blow up an unmanned boat and say that the Cubans did it. The presence of Cuban planes or ships merely investigating the intent of the vessel could be fairly compelling evidence that the ship was taken under attack. So therefore, they're saying that we could blow up a Cuban boat, and then when the Cubans came to see what was going on, we could go, look, there they are, they're the ones that did it. This is, again, for those joining us, this is from the CIA. This is from the government to President Kennedy just before he was murdered. And if you put into Google and you get fact checked, was this operation the reason why he was murdered? It says no. I don't know about you guys, but it gets better. So we could develop a communist Cuban terror campaign in the Miami area. So now they're bringing it onto their own soil, in other Florida cities and even in Washington. So they can do a fake terror campaign on American soil. The terror campaign could be pointed at Cuban refugees seeking haven in the United States. We could sink a boatload of Cubans en route to Florida, in brackets, real or stimulated. Rockefeller's named as well in these new releases. There's a lot to go through, but it's in there. Hi, Jules. We could foster attempts on lives of Cuban refugees in the US, even to the extent of wounding in instances to be widely publicized. This is the government of the US wanting to do this. Exploding a few plastic bombs in carefully chosen spots, the arrest of Cuban agents and the release of prepared documents substantiating Cuban involvement would also be helpful in projecting the idea of an irresponsible government in Cuba, that is. Number 5. A Cuban-based Castro-supported filibuster could be simulated against a neighbouring Caribbean nation. So we're going to go and bomb a neighbouring nation in the vein of the 14th of June invasion of the Dominican Republic. We know that Castro is backing subversive efforts clandestinely against Haiti, Dominican Republic, Guatemala, and... What's that say there? What's this here? Why has it gone all dull? It's not charging. Hang on. Right, my laptop's going to die. Hold on a sec, folks. Oh, come on. That's better. It wasn't charging. So basically, this here says that they want to do all these things on American soil. All right. Now, these could be magnified and additional ones contrived for exposure. For example, advantage can be taken of their sensitivity of the Dominican Air Force. It goes on, use of NIG-type aircraft by US pilots could provide additional provocation. It was plugged in, it must have pulled out by mistake. Harassment of civil air attacks on surface shipping and destruction of US military drone aircrafts. Hijacking attempts against civil air and surface craft should appear to continue as harassing measures condoned by the government of Cuba. They were setting them all up, their own people and the Cubans. It is possible to create an incident which will demonstrate convincingly that a Cuban aircraft has attacked and shot down a chartered civil airliner en route from the United States to Jamaica, Guatemala, Panama, or Venezuela. They were literally going to do this. Is proof. If anyone still didn't believe about the 9/11, here's your proof. This is what they were planning decades before it happened. They just needed the right president to say yes. Right, so the destination will be chosen to cause the flight plan route to cross Cuba. The passengers could be a group of college students off on a holiday, or any grouping of persons with a common interest in supported chartering. They were going to blow up a flight and blame Cuba to make the American people want the Americans to go in and overthrow the Castro government. This was about winning the hearts and minds of the Americans and the Cuban people. An aircraft will be painted and numbered as an exact duplicate for a civil registered aircraft belonging to a CIA proprietary organization in the Miami area. At a designated time, the duplicate would be substituted for the actual civil aircraft and would be loaded with selected passengers, all boarded under carefully prepared aliases. The actual registered aircraft would be converted to a drone. So they wanted to get an aeroplane that had people on it that they chose, and then swap it at the last minute for one that wasn't manned and blow that up. This isn't a conspiracy. This is actual documents. When over Cuba, the drone will be transmitting on the international distress frequency as Mayday, stating he is under attack by a Cuban aircraft. The transmission will be interrupted by destruction of the aircraft, which will be triggered by a radio signal. You get my gist here, right? I've put the link in. I'm not going to read it all, but as you can see, this was Operation Northwood, guys. They were going to shoot down a submarine or small surface craft, all to agitate the Cubans, the people of Cuba, to think that their government were doing all these things. The Joint Chief of Staff have previously stated that US unilateral military intervention in Cuba can be undertaken in the event that the Cuban regime commits hostile acts against US forces. They've just got to get it going. The need for positive action in the event that current covert efforts to foster an international Cuban rebellion are unsuccessful was indicated by the Joint Chief of Staff on the 7th of March, 1962. So 18 months before President Kennedy was assassinated. They were all happy for this. All the generals and so on, they were more than happy for all of this to go ahead. This is Operation Northwood. President Kennedy said no. Is that why he was murdered? Were they waiting for a President Bush type to come along in a few years' time when Cuba was no longer their problem? They wanted to overthrow the government in Iraq. I think we've seen, this is what I'm saying. We've got to look at the bigger picture. Okay. This isn't all about, sorry, I was looking at something. This isn't all about the Lee Harvey Oswald. That is a massive part of it. But all of these things were going on at the same time, just in the leading up to and just after President Kennedy was assassinated. And he was having none of it. He said, no, I am not doing this. And the thing is, these operations are named in the files. Operation Mongoose named in the files. So just an example, I've just clicked on one of these here and I've just opened one in the new release files. Just open this. Look, 2025 release under President John F. Kennedy assassination records of 1992. And that gives permission for them, if needed, for a president to rule it open. So yeah, look, why would this be in the JFK files if it wasn't related? Psychological programs, Cuba. This is a memo. See, Second Latin American Youth Congress. Possible retaliatory actions by Cuban government. I've just plucked this out of the files of the over 2,000 in the newest release files. Now, released with deletions in 1998. Okay, so there's been previous releases. Another release, 2016. The CIA has no objection to declassification or release of this document as sanitized. Yeah, I'm just getting going, Timmy. I'm not an expert on this. I cover so many different things on all my channels. I'm not an expert, but we do have people that are really, really into this sort of stuff who could probably get on to do an interview. Axel, I'll try and get. I've not spoke to him in ages. So, an informed meeting of the Interdepartmental Subcommittee in brackets Psychological Programs on Cuban Affairs was convened in room 7519 New State at 2:30 the 30th of December 1963. 2 weeks after they bumped him off, they were back onto this. Does that not make people realize he was bumped off because he didn't want to go along with what the military, the US military, wanted to do? They were back on it. Look, 1963, he was murdered on the 22nd of November 1963, and look, what is it, a few weeks later they're back on it again. They're back on the Cuba thing. You could literally, 9/11 is literally, this was all a blueprint. Look, with regard to Castro attacks on areas in Latin America, they're still going for it. Sabotage or terroristic bombings. This is the memo of that meeting. Now, you'd think that a country, jamming of US radio stations so they couldn't talk to each other about what was going on. This is not a coincidence that this was going on at the same time as Kennedy was murdered. Jamming of US radio stations. Look, if this was a country that had just lost its president in a murder, do you really think that a couple of weeks later they would be worrying about terrorist attacks on its own soil to try and get Castro thrown out by his own people? It was generally agreed September the 13th, 1963, just 2 months before the assassination, the meeting of the committee, that most likely actions of the Cuban government are those which would not provoke the US retaliation seriously and immediately endangering the Castro regime. It appears more likely that Castro might intensify his support of submersive forces in Latin America. So they were cutting off the water supply. They were going to cut off the water supply to the Cuban people. And President Kennedy, he got in the way of this. He said no. But if anybody wants to help me, because I don't have the time to go through all these guys, I've got a lot going on. And as you know, the weather's getting better. So I'm going to be going out a lot now. Again, like I'm usually out a lot in the summer. I homemade my son, as a lot of you are aware. I don't know if you are, Timmy's Pipcoat, but I home educate my little boy. So I've got that to do. And then in the summer, we go out and do projects. So we go out and we're doing a seabird and wildlife project. We've got lots going on. So, God, there's so much. So I'm not going to have time to sit and go through all these. I'll be there forever. But there's just so much. But there's some really, really interesting stuff. And this Mongoose is Project Mongoose as well. So I'm trying to find anything on the day of the shooting. What are people saying in chat? Do that autism program. Thanks for doing this, Penny. Oh, thanks, Jules. And Ryan Dawson. I think I've heard of him, actually. Right. Have I not got anything up on the screen? No, I haven't. Right. Just bear with me, guys. I'm just going through some of these memos before we go. So just bear with me a sec. I don't know what this is. Do you watch Jeff Taylor? I'm not keen on him. I remember when he first started years ago. He started acting like a bit of a weirdo. Like, I don't know what he's like now. I stopped watching him, but he used to stand there with a mug in his hand, like posing, and it was just really bizarre. And then he got really big, and then he got big-headed. But that's what happens, isn't it? People end up, they get really big, and then they get big-headed. But guys, I'm just going through some of these memos. I can't open them all for you because otherwise I've got to open, close. Because every time I open a new PDF, it opens a new page, and I can only show you on StreamYard one page open at the time. A lot of these are all about these Cuban operations, which is what I've been harping on about for the last 2 years, I think it is now. These Cuban operations. Right, what's this? Literally every single memo so far is obsessively mentioning Cuba. Right, what's this? Hold on. Found something interesting. Let's have a quick gander. Guys, it's 10:30. It's really late. I've got some stuff to do. Dogs need to get up as well. So, just come across this one, Secret Service. A report of William Hughes, 1969. I don't know what this is. Rob Shear, white male, date of birth, 36 in New York. Yeah, I don't know what this is. So this is in, what was it, 69, 70. They're still talking about Cuba. Look, fair play for Cuba Committee. Progressive Labour Party. Communist Socialist Alliance. They were obsessed with the 1969. The issue of ramparts. So this Rob Shear is employed as editor-in-chief of Ramparts magazine. Now, Ramparts magazine is what we've just come across when they were talking about that Gary Underhill, who apparently suicided himself 6 months after the president was assassinated, and he said that it wasn't done by Harvey Oswald, it was done by the CIA themselves. Okay, so this magazine, this Ramparts, was like a socialist communist magazine. They're upset about him. They're talking about him. Now, 69, he was already dead. Because in 67, they actually released a story in Ramparts that he was murdered. They are not happy about this. Marriage record. What's this? They're obsessing over this. Right. So this guy who is the editor-in-chief of this Ramparts magazine, this communist magazine that was exposing the CIA, they've even got the marriage certificate for him and his wife, that they've been stalking the guy who was in charge of that magazine that was blowing the Gary Underhill murder open. These people are obsessed. Look at this. Anne Wells Shear was the recipient of a yearly subscription to the People's World newspaper under her maiden name, N. Wales. This subscription was they were watching what newspapers people were buying in them days. There's a lot to go through. They were literally keeping tabs on people. Ultra liberal students at UCB. They were not happy. I've watched documentaries of people at the time, and you know, it seems to me they were really paranoid, the Americans were. And I believe that's why they started doing all this UFO stuff. What's this here? Hang on. They were trying to distract the American public with flying saucers. I'm just having a quick look at something. See, a lot of this was actually released in 2017 as ordered by President Trump. Right, what's this? Hang on. It's just Cuba. All of this is just leading up to the assassination. Let me just get this up. Anyway, thank you for those who have stuck with me, because as you can see, this isn't a simple task. It's huge. So this here, more Cuba. This was released in 2017 as per Donald Trump. So this was a statement of personal history, the 18th of January, 1963. So this was before JFK was actually murdered. And they're stalking some Cuban guy. Look, that was his nickname. That's when the guy was born. His height, his weight, colour of eyes, brown. Native country, Cuba. He was living... He came into Texas in 1962. It looks like they were recruiting Cubans coming in as immigrants. See? Other relatives and alien friends. Farmer, housewife. Country is visited from August 62, September 62. He went to Mexico. So it seems to me that when Cubans were coming into the US to seek asylum, they were, subject claims he assisted any and all organizations against Castro. They were all in Cuba. They are recruiting anti-Castro Cubans. He has been in jail without trial in the G2 of Rio, Cuba, for political reasons. He's perfect for them because he had been in jail for going against Castro. So they've recruited this guy, 18th of January, 1963, 10 months before, the Bay of Pigs, 10 months before the assassination. Why is this in the JFK files if it's unrelated? So I've been suspicious for a long time that it's involved, that it's all involved. But we need to obviously go through this and find what we can on the shooter on the day. That's going to be a nightmare to find, but it's in here. It is in here. There's a lot of it is handwritten. I'm just looking through. I know you guys can't see what I'm looking at, but a lot of it is literally notes, handwritten notes that have been scanned in at some point in the future, that have been handwritten in the 60s. And I bet I can't read most of them. They're all scribbles. So do we have anyone that wants to help me go through these? Hi, Bridget. What's this? Hang on, let me just see what there's this. What's this? This is payroll. This is literally people's payroll. What people earned. Now, 36 grand was a lot of money in them days, a year. I don't know what all this is about, but why would this US House of Representatives payroll certification January till December 77. Max was 1,200,000 in the 70s. Wow. Why is that in here? You know, like, why would that be? Why would the payroll be in the JFK files? Are they saying that they were paid off? Yeah, I don't know how to do it though. Maybe AI will help me, as in my hubby, not. Oh, it's just so sad, isn't it? This is why I wish they could invent. Well, they probably have already invented time travel. When I find something, I will let you know. But there's just millions of these. And Al will tell you that I have, yeah, all the staff payroll records are in these files. What do people make of that? Do you think that's weird? Does anyone know why that would even be in here? So I'll keep going through what I can. Hang on. So they're saying that Oswald was working with the Soviets and they're trying to blame it on that. Does anybody here believe, just a yes or a no, the official narrative of why President Kennedy was assassinated? Just out of interest. Let me know. Just a yes or a no. Exiled 1. If those files don't say the driver shot Kennedy, then those files are a lie. I've not seen you for ages, mate. How you doing? I'm not subbed to you on this channel. It's been a while, isn't it? I'll give you a spanner. Who can help me then with... Who can help me with this? You can push documents into Grok. Oh, really? Right. Well, I've got Twitter. What's it called? The verified thing. How you doing, Exiled 1? Hang on. Well, apparently there's so much though to go through. There's too much to go through to even know whether the information's actually in there. It's like the fact that I think what we'll do next time, right? I think what we'll do next time is we'll look at who killed Oswald. I've just found an article here. Look at this. Hang on. Right. This is what I was talking about. Apparently he was... I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Now, this is what I was talking about. He was apparently a poor shot. Is this going to let me look at it, or is it going to make me pay? He was apparently a poor shot. So Lee Harvey Oswald was a poor shot during gun practice. This is what I was saying in the Soviet Union in new release documents. So I need to try and find the actual document that says this. But they're saying here that that was released. So, right. So it says here, conspiracy theories about assassination persist. And the document provides additional context on Oswald, who defected to the Soviet Union in 1959 before returning to the US. The file may contribute to ongoing debates about Oswald's ability to shoot Kennedy from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository where he worked. So he worked there. And this was the 23rd, the next day. He's quite a beefcake, isn't he? He's quite beefy. And his body looks quite beefy. So the last ones have been released. One CIA document from the 20th of November 1991, 1 month before the Soviet Union was dissolved, recalls a conversation between an American professor living in Russia and a Soviet official named Nikonov. And it says that he personally reviewed KGB files to determine if Oswald had been a KGB agent. He reviewed 5 thick volumes of files on Oswald. Nikonov is now confident that Oswald was at no time an agent controlled by the KGB. The files reviewed show that Oswald was a poor shot when he tried target firing in the USSR. What does that tell you? He was a poor shot. There's no way one shot killed that president. No way. Right. So he had a Soviet wife as well who rode him incessantly. Who were Mrs. That refers to Marina Oswald. A 1993 PBS documentary showed that she was a domestic abuse victim and that Oswald's abuse increased after they returned to the US. So he went and got himself a Russian bride. Doesn't look very happy, does she, at all? Is that their wedding? Looks like that's their wedding day. So it's crazy to think that we could have been here now talking about the assassination of President Trump had it gone through. You know? Hello, George. Right. I got to go. It's 22:11. These pups are awake now. Are you awake? Yeah. Okay. Right then, guys. I don't know what you guys are on about Jewish now. Yeah, they're saying that all this Israel stuff's redacted. I don't know. Like I said, do you need a wee wee? Right. If you're watching Al, George needs a wee wee. He's just tapped me. He taps me. So next time we'll look at I'll go through some more and we'll look at who killed Lee Harvey Oswald only 2 weeks after. I think there was more than one shooter as well. I can't read your name. And we'll look at the ballistics report. We'll look at the ballistics report of the gun. We'll look at where the bullet was found, I think in the sea, and apparently it was all right, I know. I need to get Daddy. Let me just message Al. Hold on. George needs a wee. All right. He taps me. So intelligent, this pup. He taps me on the leg to tell me that he needs a wee. Taps me. Goes tap, tap, tap. Don't you? You tapping mummy? Yeah. AI, come on. George needs a wee and he's got 0 patience. Right, guys, I've got to go. I've got to take the dog out if Al doesn't see my message. Thanks for joining me. Oh, there's Daddy. Look, see, you got a wee, good boy. Anybody else ever had a dog that taps them when they need something? It taps me on the leg, tap, tap. And if I don't respond, then I get a tap, 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 tap. And then if I don't respond again, he just keeps like getting firmer and firmer, and then he just jumps on my head. Right, thanks everyone for joining me. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, and a lot of people find this boring. I find it intriguing. The next show will be crop circles. Obviously, I'm going to be working on this in the background. All right, I'm doing bits in the background. I'm probably going to put a video together as well. When did you get another dog? George, we got George last July. It's a long story. Gizmo, they like their own type. Gizmo was quite even though he's a house, you know, he's with us everywhere we go. We never leave him or anything like that. He wanted a friend, so it's all right, Bridget, love. You might not have found this interesting anyway. Yeah, Gizmo's got really bad hips, so he does suffer with his hips a lot, and he can't do much running around. There's only one, bless him. But he's got his brother now, George, and they share the same great granddad, I think. They said, but yeah, they're best friends. Anyway, guys, I'll see you all next time. I don't know if I'm going to be doing a stream tomorrow night yet. I'm not sure. I might do one. I might do a phone in again. I don't know yet. So it's going to be the next deep dive is going to be crop circles, and then we're going to do something about the moon landings, where I'm going to get some evidence for and against, and then I might open up the panel and people can discuss. In the meantime, I'll probably be doing a news show on my new channel. If you're not subbed to my new channel, would you guys sub up, please? I'm trying to grow it, and I'm not having much time to do much on it, you see. Let me just put the link in for my other channel. This is where all of the news and politics type stuff will be moving forward. So I'm just going to pop the link in now. So if you've got a spanner, this is my other channel there, Penny for Your Thoughts. And I'm just going to share the link as well. Hold on. Go to channel. So politics, American, UK, news, stuff like that is going to be going into this one. So I've just put the link in there. If you're not subbed, please sub to that channel. I'm keeping my other channel, my main channel, just for like animals and outdoors. We're going to be hopefully tomorrow. So if you are a member, keep a lookout for the link. I'm going to be putting an unlisted link out for the members only. So if you want to join the members, you can. And I'll see you all next time. Thanks for joining me, and have a lovely evening. Good night. God bless. Thank you, Bridget, love. Thank you. Take care. Ta-ta. Bye. And don't forget, hit the like as well if you don't mind. It does help. All the